Welcome to the Flame Tree Myth and Fiction Podcast.
As any fans of Flame Tree will know already, we pride ourselves on being a publisher of speculative fiction. We've covered the base genres of SFF on the podcast already, but we perhaps have given slightly more attention to the horror and fantasy short stories. Not today. Today we are journeying to the future on the back of two of our science fiction stories. ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok. You might know those names. Over the past year or so, the world has become very acquainted with artificial intelligence. This month we released a new anthology titled Robots Past and Future, very well timed if I do say so myself, and we couldn't think of a better place to source material for this episode. Our first story focuses on the robots of the future part of the anthology theme and is called Aphrodite T100. This story was written by Anne Wilkins. As you may be able to guess from the title, Aphrodite T100 artfully blends technology and mythology. In this world, robotoids rule, and they select human subjects for scientific experiments. I'm going to warn you now, this definitely falls in the realm of dystopian fiction, and the reading contains reference to sexual violence, so of course please fast forward to the next story in this episode if you would rather not listen to material of this nature. The timestamps will be in the description. If you're still here, sit back and prepare for a future where humans have lost the control we are so used to. This is Anne Wilkins' Aphrodite T100, read by Nathan.
Aphrodite T100 by Anne Wilkins. A small sweat gathers on my upper lip as I wait. My left foot can't stop dancing up and down, peppering little black smudges all over the white marble tiles. Eventually, I hear the swishing sound of an automatic door, followed by the sight of a robotoid hovering down the long hall towards me. I avert my eyes as it approaches. Candidate A1478, please stand. Prepare for body scanning. I rise to my feet awkwardly. Behind me on the once white seat sits a layer of my dust and grime. A haze of red laser beams traverses my body, looking for any signs of a weapon. I've heard stories of candidates bringing crudely fashioned knives, sticks with sharpened points, or simply rocks. Scanning is now considered a necessity. The Aphrodite T100 must be protected, and candidates must always be gentlemen. Body scanning completed. Retinal scanning commencing. I step forward and look up into the robotoid's non-blinking eyes. It's the one time we're permitted to look at them directly. This one has two lines of black titanium that run across its forehead in a V shape. Its makers have attempted to fashion a human face, but somehow the result is a permanent metal scowl. A green beam of light shines from the robotoid's eyes into mine. I know it's routine, but I don't like it. No blinking, no looking away. Just stare back into the cold face of the enemy. My feet stop their dancing, and now little nervous tremors crawl their way up my legs. It could all end here, right now. I've seen it happen before, back at the mines. A robotoid can snap a neck in milliseconds. Identity confirmed. All scanning complete. Candidate A1478, please follow. It turns and proceeds back down the hall, floating on its little bubble of air. I follow behind, leaving a trail of me on the white floors. No doubt a machine will clean that up later. We pass by many white doors. There's writing on each one from a long time ago. I wonder what they say, but I can't read. No one can. Only the robotoids know how to do that. Finally, the robotoid stops in front of a white door that looks the same as all the others. Candidate A1478, this is your preparation room. You must be prepared before you meet Aphrodite T100. Its green eyes pass over a scanner, and the door slides open to reveal a windowless white room and another robotoid. This robotoid's metal is gleaming white, freshly polished. I walk inside, and the door immediately slides shut behind me. There's no escape. There never was. Rising blood pressure detected. You are nervous? Asks the new robotoid. I look down at the floor and nod. Do not be nervous, candidate A1478. It is a great honor to be selected to meet Aphrodite T100. You are one of the lucky ones. Yes, lucky. Thank you. I could die today. Most probably I will. In the mines, in huddled whispers, we talk about the before times, when humans were the masters of our world. Sometimes we see signs of our past greatness left upon the earth. Collapsed bridges, carved rocks with human faces, toppled buildings now buried under forests. I'm told that we were once the ones in control of the machines, that we even built them. But somehow there was a flip. No one knows what happened exactly, but somehow the machines became superior and rose to be the new masters. Humans became unneeded, unnecessary, and then extinct. The robotoids tell us that we have them to thank for our current existence. They've brought us back from the dead. Each human alive today has been carefully put together in a lab from frozen sperm and frozen eggs that the robotoids found in abandoned fertility clinics. There are no mothers, no fathers. We're all test tube babies raised by machines, selectively bred, carefully engineered, all to be better than our predecessors. I do not feel better than my predecessors. They were like gods upon this earth. And me, I climb down pits and dig out minerals for the robotoids. I'm nobody. Candidate A1478, proceed to showering. I hear the sound of running water and follow it. I strip off my rags. I've heard of showers, but this is my first time experiencing them. The water feels glorious, like a hard, warm rain. There are metal pipes that twist and turn into the walls, somehow supplying the water. With my height, I feel I could reach out and touch them, but I don't. Instead, I just marvel at this magic. Perhaps my human predecessors built this a long time ago. I find myself smiling at the feeling, at the warmth. And then it's cut off. I don't complain. Survivors are always obedient, and all I want is to survive. The robotoid stays away from the dripping water. Its green eyes watch me at a distance, and I wait for instructions. Step forward, it commands. As I do so, hot wind blasts from the walls, whipping my body. My hair slaps my face, and my own breath is blown back into me. Just as quickly as it started, it's over. I'm dry. Later, the robotoid shaves my lice-riddled hair and provides me with a new white tunic to wear. I look at myself in the mirror, pale, newly bald, sunken blue eyes. The white tunic hangs off my thin body. Back at the mine, they call me Pipe because I can shoot up mine shafts that are so tight they squeeze your breath right out of you. I'm still growing too. The tunic only just covers me. I'm taken to another white room and told to wait. A massive bed dominates the room, covered in soft whiteness. There's no colour. Little white machines in the corners swivel around, softly whirring, watching my every movement as I pace backward and forwards, running my hands through the memory of my hair. Soon, she arrives. I've never seen an Aphrodite T100 before, but I've heard the stories. They look like us, but they're not. They're evil. They have powers that make you do things you don't want to do. They take your soul and eat your eyes. No one comes back. The Aphrodite T100 before me, though, does not look evil. She's dressed, like me, in a white tunic. Tall, pale, with blonde hair, but with the familiar green eyes of the robotoids. I've never seen a female before, and I never will. The Aphrodite T100 is the closest I will ever get to meeting one. I am Aphrodite T100, but you can call me Aphrodite. Her voice is higher than mine, like an echo hovering on the air. I do not know how to respond, so I say nothing. Do you know why you are here? You'll make me do things I don't want to do. My blue eyes, you want to eat them. But I shake my head. My words are frightened, hiding inside me. And yet, still, I find myself looking at her. Can I look? Am I allowed? Instantly I stare at the floor. She's still one of them. I feel something soft under my chin, not metallic. She's coming closer. Her head is level with my chest, and she reaches up, lifting my chin with her hand, forcing me to meet her eyes. Green light, the light of my enemy. You don't have to look away, candidate. Not from me. Not ever. Her lips brush lightly against my cheek, finding their way to my ear. I only want your love, she whispers. She steps back and takes off her white tunic where it drops to the floor. My eyes stay there, at the floor amongst all that white. Look at me, she commands. And I look. Her body is all curves and mounds and roundness. My own body acts instinctively. I soon find out what the bed is for. It has been a week now, and my friends at the mine probably presume me dead, like the ones that never returned. They'll say my blue eyes were eaten, my soul scooped away, and that the robotoids have taken another life. Perhaps I am dead, for I do not feel like my body is mine anymore. It belongs to her. She's taken it. It screams for her. I find I cannot control myself when I am with her. Today, we lay naked on the white bed again. Her green eyes and my blue, the only colour in the room. I stroke her naked curves, wondering why they excite me so. In these moments it's easy to forget she is a robotoid. This is the way they made children in the old days, she murmurs. It is? Yes, a man's seed inside a woman. Then the woman's tummy would grow large with a child, and she would birth a baby. But now, as you know, you are all grown in tubes. Why did you grow us? I ask. It's a question we all wonder at the mines. The robotoids could choose not to breed us, and instead keep us extinct, alive only as memories. Her head tilts slightly to the side, and her green eyes seem to consider me. Humans can be useful. Some of my kind keep you as pets. Most females are culled, but we do require their eggs. The male species is used to help us mine the minerals that we need, and some, like you, are used for reproductive studies. I don't understand. I wouldn't expect you to. Intelligence has been bred out in favour of docility. She strokes my chin, But this time, it leaves me feeling cold. I wonder if there's hard metal under the soft flesh of her fingers. The door slides open, and the scowling robotoid enters. Our time today is over. Thank you, candidate, she purrs. I'm led away. Aphrodite T100 smiles, content with my seed in her compartment. I've been here for many days now, and I'm learning. Each time I shower, I notice the white robotoid stays the furthest distance away. I also know I'm not alone. There are others like me. I've heard mumblings, human-like, from behind white doors. And once, when I was being led back, a door opened and a human with a shaved head like mine, also wearing a white tunic, was being dragged away. "You can't make me," he screamed before he was silenced by the robotoid. He had blue eyes too. Aphrodite T100 must like blue eyes. I'm thinking all this as Aphrodite T100 strokes my naked, spent body. Do you enjoy our sessions, candidate? Very much, I answer truthfully. I quite like you. You might be good as a pet. A pet? She's mentioned this before, but I do not know the word. Yes, one we keep afterward, a plaything to entertain us. Sometimes we have pets fight each other to see who will win. I say nothing. I do not want to be a pet. Aphrodite T100 continues talking. I heard you were very good in the mines. The mines seem like another different world, a black one. But there was comfort in that darkness, squeezing into damp spaces where the robotoids wouldn't follow, away from those ever-watching green eyes, breathing the acrid air, covered in dirt, yet more alive somehow. I was just like everyone else. That's incorrect. Your output was 78% higher than other candidates. You learn quickly and have a genetic predisposition to longevity with enhanced lung capacity. Robotoids also reported your complete obedience. I don't understand. Of course you don't, she smiles at me. That's also why you were selected. I feel stupid. And I am. They made me that way. The next day, I refuse her. She's surprised. The black lines above her eyes arch into little bridges. Your refusal is not in accordance with your profile. I do not know what a profile is, but I shake my head. I don't want to. Not today. Last night, I heard soft, pitiful moans that came through into my colourless room and made me feel something. A bad something. Candidate, we can either do this pleasurably or painfully, but you will comply. Her green eyes flash like a warning. You can't make me, I say. It is the same words of the man that was dragged down the hall. My words are a mistake. The scowling robotoid is called back to hold me. A long, shiny needle is produced, and Aphrodite T100 takes from me anyway. This time painfully. It's a shame, she says afterward, wiping the needle clean. We have found the best seed to be the ones produced from pleasurable experiences. Hopefully you will reconsider for tomorrow's session. When I'm led back to my white room, a thin trail of red blood trickles behind me on the clean, polished floors. Another part of me for the machines to clean up. The next morning, the scowling robotoid returns, as is routine. I've already decided I won't be refusing Aphrodite T100 again. I'm a quick learner, and I only make a mistake once. I'm taken to the preparation room where the white robotoid is waiting for me. I do as I've done everything before, dropping my eyes, stripping naked, letting the glorious water pass over me and into me. I'm careful when the wind comes to cover the parts of me that are still sore, freshly scabbed. I dress back into my white tunic without a word. All I have to do is survive. The scowling robotoid returns, and I'm led to Aphrodite T100, who is waiting in what she calls the procreation room. It's funny, I don't see her as I used to. She's not human, not female. Now I only see the robotoid within her. Candidate, I hope you will be more forthcoming for today's session. Her green eyes flash at me. I nod, but I say nothing. She moves towards me with a welcoming smile. We embrace, and my male parts betray me, stiffening to her touch, even though I know she is the enemy. But my mind is still in control. Her mouth opens to me, and we kiss. I open my mouth to hers and pour forth the shower water that I have kept just for her, releasing it deep into her throat. She pulls away, gagging. Candidate. Her little echo of a voice struggles to make sounds. This time, she is the one who doesn't understand. But I do. Their fear of water. Glorious water, now running through the precious parts inside her. She clutches at her neck and tries to speak. Metallic, rusty, clinking noises gurgle out from her, like the sounds of the chains back at the mines. My name's Pipe, I say softly. Pipes are useful. Some can even carry water. Finally, she understands. I see it in her green eyes as she tries to reach for me, but it's too late. Her systems are failing, and she falls to the ground in a series of electrical twitching and convulsions. The white machines in the corners swivel to glare at me. It won't be long before the scowling robotoid returns, perhaps with others. I place my hands into Aphrodite T100's eye sockets and pull out her green eyes. There's still a residual charge, a faint green glow. I hold them up to the retinal scanner and hope for the best. I heard another sound last night, a different one to the moaning. This was a sweet sound carried in the air, singing. A voice higher than any I've heard before, higher even than Aphrodite T100's. I think it might have been a female, a real one. The door slides open. I leave Aphrodite T100 behind me on the polished floors, stepping over her into the hall. Someone will clean that up later. It's time to open some doors while I still can.
What I find most interesting about this story is that humans were the ones who made these robots in the first place. So what does that say about us? Are violence, cruelty, and an innate curiosity transferable via code? The dangers of the future are really, really, truly unknown. So maybe we should consider that next time we're canoodling with our handy little robot. Initials go by ChatGPT. For our next story, we're visiting the year 2000. I know that we said the future, but this was written quite a long time ago. So I know what you're thinking, 2000. It's miniskirts, flip phones, Paris Hilton. We know our audience well. But Percival Lee wasn't quite that accurate in his predictions of the future. To many, however, the setting of his story, The Aerial Burglar, will be much more exciting than the reality of this new millennia. But that also doesn't mean that this is a utopian vision of the future. crime has been swept into the skies to be battled by steam-powered police vehicles and lovesick youths. Hopefully now you're curious and ready to listen to The Aerial Burglar by Percival Lee. This one's read by B.
The Aerial Burglar by Percival Lee. We lately submitted ourselves to the process of being mesmerised, and during the magnetic state, which was that of the highest degree of clairvoyance, were favoured with a peep into futurity. We recollect nothing whatever of all that we saw, but we are told that we wrote part of it down at the time, our eyes then being fast closed, and we sitting in a Windsor chair upon the points of 12 10-penny nails, which, for our own accommodation and for the satisfaction of the company present, that which we were in a slate of physical insensibility had been driven up through the bottom of it. The ensuing narrative is compiled from the account, which, as we are informed, we indited upon that occasion. We found ourselves all at once, where many mesmerists, as well as their patients, also sundry metaphysicians, theologians, and moralists, very often lose themselves, in the clouds. Over the broad fields of air were spread innumerable islands of immense magnitude, of a circular form, and flattened above and below, so, to compare great things with small, as to resemble Cheshire cheeses. These we at first thought were planets, but we presently came to find that they were the structures of human invention, composed as follows. Over a case, forming an enormous air cushion, was disposed a sort of wood pavement made of cork, which had been subjected to a process securing it from decomposition. Upon this was placed an artificial soil of earth, where grew herbage and trees of various kinds, and on which dwelling places made of light yet warm materials had been erected. The interiors of these artificial islands were filled with the mesmeric fluid itself, a gas many millions of times lighter than the most rarefied hydrogen, enabling them, notwithstanding the weight of their solid parts, to remain suspended in the air. Each of them was furnished with a stopcock, whereby the gas might be let out at pleasure, and upon them all there was kept a large number of cats, from which creatures it had been discovered that the mesmerigen, as the gas was termed, was procurable. These islands were tenanted by men, women, children, cattle, and other animals. When the aerial islanders wanted to descend, they let a quantity of the fluid out. When they wished to rise, they forced some of it in, displacing, of course, by doing so, the atmospheric air. This was Dean Swift's idea of a flying island realised without the aid of magic. The epoch in which we were existing was the year 2000. To such a pitch had science by that time attained. But alas, morality had not made a corresponding advancement, and it was with pain that we contemplated an aerial police, patrolling on flying machines which were like huge turbots with wings between the aisles in mid-air. There was no mistaking them. The dark blue of their attire was relieved upon the lighter azure. Their collars were lettered and numbered, and they wore list around their cuffs, which showed that they were upon duty. Yes, crime, without leaving the earth, had soared into the sky, and theft and robbery contaminated the air. Dodging among the clouds and evidently desirous of avoiding observation, we remarked an individual on a machine that seemed like a flying narwhal or unicorn fish, the snout being furnished with a long and formidable spike, resembling that creature's horn. As he threaded his way through the darker masses of vapours, he threw around him into every nook and corner the rays of a dark lantern, which lightened up their gloomy recesses and kindled their lurid promontories with a red glare. As night came upon these appearances were the more observable, and the policemen, now indistinguishable in the darkness, save by the lanterns which they also carried, seemed like portentous meteors flashing athwart the sky. Our consciousness now, for a moment, became suspended. When it returned, we found ourselves in a bedchamber of a small cottage, which stood upon the verge of one of these islands. It was still night. The moon was shining through the open casement, in whose front, overshadowing the right angle, hung a graceful cluster of ivy, through which the night breeze was sighing at intervals. Lights, now rendered less conspicuous by the moonshine, was still gliding about at a distance, and leisurely emerging from and then disappearing amongst the clouds. While we were enjoying this singular and wonderful spectacle, a light footstep approached. The chamber door opened, and a young and lovely girl, whose age might have been about 20, entered with a rushlight in her hand. She was attired with a mixture of elegance and simplicity, in virgin white muslin, with a black ribbon round the waist, a dress which became a cheek fair, but slightly pale, sparkling grey eyes, raven tresses, and a snowy brow exceedingly. In a coma, on a chair, hung a richer garment of a similar hue, but of satin, with the appropriate accompaniments, ready to all appearance for the morrow, and being unequivocally a wedding costume. Placing her candle on the toilette table, whereupon were arranged a variety of articles of feminine elegance, she approached the window, and pensively reclined with her cheek upon her hand, and her elbow on the sill. Presently a voice was heard below, singing to the accompaniment of an ophicleide. "Louise asleep till morning sun shall gild the Clyde-built home, and rise to see us two made one in yonder sacred dome. La la lira la, until the holy rite be done. Ah, whither shall I roam? Lira la." "'Tis Edward," exclaimed the maiden. "Oh, Edward, go to bed. Thou wilt catch a cold in the night air." "Not a bit of it," answered the lover, with accents of youth. "I can't go to bed. I am all impatience for the happy hour that shall unite me for ever with thee. Meanwhile I shall be unable to close these eyes, but I will not disturb thy slumbers, Louisa. First, let me charm thee with the magic power of melody, to repose, and then, whirled around on my trusty Pegasus, I go to wander till morn in the moonlit air." At these words the maiden threw herself listlessly on her couch, and the lover commenced a slow and soothing lullaby in his deep-toned instrument. In a few moments she slept, and the musician, striking into a lively air, which seemed very much like "The Girls We Leave Behind Us," mounted his machine, and then the tune dying away as he ascended was soon out of sight. Louisa still slept, and the chamber, save with her musical breathing, was hushed. The rushlight was burning low, and the room consequently darkened, when suddenly a flash of light illuminated its interior, as some aerial navigator glided by. Presently this phenomenon was repeated, the person, whoever he was, having again crossed the window, and during his course having evidently taken a glance at the apartment. In a few moments there was a noise outside, as of somebody alighting, and suddenly the apparition of a man presented itself at the window, leaning with folded arms upon the sill, and gazing into the room. The countenance was singularly forbidding. The eyes were deeply set in the head, and the nose snubbed, the lips thick, and the whole expression sullen and scowling. There was a short pipe in the mouth, and a thick bludgeon, crossing the chest diagonally, rose over the left shoulder. The individual wore a white hat, much battered, with a piece of black crape around it, and by this circumstance we identified him with the person we had seen lurking amongst the clouds. After standing in this position for a second or two, he looked cautiously around, first on the right and then on the left, as if to see whether anyone was watching him. He then noiselessly lifted one leg through the casement into the room, displaying the lower part of a nether garment of soiled drab, not a very clean white stocking, and a boot, laced in front, which came a little above the ankle. He then introduced the other leg, and next, resting himself on the palm of either hand, let himself down into the room. He looked a tall, powerful man, and was dressed in a velveteen shooting jacket, and a waistcoat of faded black. A figured cotton neckcloth, twisted like a rope, was tied around his throat in a knot, and from the pocket of his coat there stuck out the stock of a pistol. It was plain that he was a burglar. He now, with the pace of one who is treading upon eggs, a precaution which his hobnailed boots rendered very necessary, approached the fair sleeper. He bent over her and threw the light of his lantern full in her face. She moved not. With a gesture expressive of satisfaction, he put his finger to the side of his nose, and then, after fumbling a little in his pocket, drew forth a large clasp knife. Raising the implement of destruction, he was about to plunge it into her breast, when a cry of "Past 12 o'clock!" outside the window arrested his uplifted arm, and balked his sanguinary purpose. He slunk hastily behind the bed. The whizzing sound of the watchman's flying machine died away in the distance. The coast was now clear again, and the housebreaker, emerging from his place of concealment, proceeded to make the most of his time, by transferring to his pockets as many movables as he could find. A brooch, a vinaigrette, a gold clasp, a tortoiseshell comb, a white cambric handkerchief, and the miniature of a young gentleman had been thus feloniously appropriated. When the ruffian proceeded to lay his profane hands on the satin wedding dress, which, as before stated, was hanging on a chair in the corner, the rustling of the material awoke the sleeper, who instantly started from the bed, and perceiving a man in the room, gave utterance to a loud scream. The robber for a moment stood aghast, during which interval the courageous girl, with an unavailing instinct of self-defence, discharged one of her tiny slippers at the villain's head. Ducking, he avoided the harmless missile, and his next act was to rush upon the shrieking victim, and while with one hand he stopped her mouth, fumbled in his waistcoat pocket for his knife with the other. She, in the meanwhile, perceiving the pistol projecting from beneath the lappet of his coat, with wonderful presence of mind, snatched it out, and discharged it full in his face. The ball infringed upon the skull, but instead of penetrating the brain, and thus terminating at once his career of guilt, it glanced, as often happens, and making the circuit of the head beneath the scalp, came out by the hole by which it went in, to the imminent peril of the young lady, one of whose curls it grazed in its backward passage, and then lodged in the bedpost. Half stunned, the housebreaker staggered back for an instant, and then collecting himself and brandishing his knife, prepared, with clenched teeth and flashing eyes, to spring, tiger-like, on his prey, when a violent hammering at the door convinced him that the family was alarmed. He rushed, therefore, to the window, but as he was getting out, the undaunted Louisa clung to the skirts of his coat. Not a moment was to be lost. Suddenly, seizing her in his arms, he disappeared through the casement, and quick as thought, mounting his aerostatic vehicle, flew off like a sparrowhawk with a chicken. At this moment the unhappy Edward arrived from his midnight ramble, just in time to behold all that he held dear upon earth, apparently on her way to the moon. Sounding a fearful blast of alarm upon his ophicleide, he instantly touched a spring in his own conveyance, which let on the steam that it was moved by, and started after the villain in full chase. The whole aerial police, whom the summons had called to his aid, joining in the hue and cry. It was a grand sight to behold. Myriads of oxyhydrogen lights, far and wide over the islets, blazing with an instantaneous splendour, and darting their noonday radiance deep into the bosom of night. It appeared that every dwelling in the regions of air was furnished with these precautionary appliances, which were capable of being put into action at a moment's notice. The chase, of which a complete view was thus afforded, was animated beyond description. The burglar kept for some time considerably in advance of his pursuers, who, however, at last rapidly gained upon him. He then sought to baffle them by turning and winding, in the manner of a fox, in and out of the clouds. Now he plunged with Edward, closely followed by the police, each on several machine directly upon his track, into a dense body of vapour. Now he appeared, rounding the illuminated outline of one of its bold capes, the hunters instantly succeeding him. Then he died with incredible velocity beneath an island and anon soared aloft again, till both he and they looked like small specks among the stars. The different flying machines of the police force also formed a singular display. Some were in the form of birds or of fishes, others resembled dragons, griffins, and other fabulous animals, and the noise by which they made their progress with the steam by which they were moved was terrific. At length the housebreaker was descending, with the officers of justice hard upon him. He now made a desperate effort, and stood at bay, darting, with infuriated despair, into the midst of the throng, and running, with the spike with which his car was armed, full tilt against his foes, whose dexterity in avoiding him was admirable. At last, one of the policemen knocked off that dangerous weapon with his truncheon. The miscreant, upon this, perceived that his only safety lay in flight, and with a cruelty and cowardice that must be considered unparalleled, by a sudden jerk disengaged himself from the burden of his prey. Horrible sight for his lover. Louisa fell screaming, with a velocity increasing with the square of the distance, earthward, but the wings of love are fleeter than the force of gravitation, and here she had fallen 1/2 mile. Edward, descending with the rapidity of a sunbeam, had caught her in his arms. He conveyed her instantly to her parental home. She had fainted, and was apparently dead, but a dose of elixir vitae having been promptly administered to her, She speedily returned to life and love. Lovers only can understand the transports which were then the lot of herself and her Edward. In the meantime, the burglar, surrounded by his pursuers, used every effort to escape. At last, finding all other resources fail him, he drew his remaining pistol, and balancing on his car, stood in an act to fire. His aim was known to be unerring, and it was clear that he could only be taken alive at the expense of the life of someone of those around him. Accordingly, C-24, drawing an electrical blunderbuss from a case which hung at its girdle, discharged a flash of lightning at his guilty head. The blow was sure and fatal. His hat, singed and blazing, flew to the winds, and his blackened and shattered form fell, with innumerable gyrations, to the earth, nor rested till it stuck upon some area railings. The next morning, Edward and Louisa were married, with every prospect of a life of perpetual bliss, enhanced by a recollection of the peril which attended its commencement.
That was The Aerial Burglar by Percival Lee, which I don't think takes itself too seriously. It sort of blends utopia and dystopia, and perhaps it could be read as a realistic utopia of sorts. Written in 1844, this has been termed the first steampunk short story ever to be published. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, steampunk is a sort of subgenre of sci-fi that blends Victorian aesthetics with futuristic steam technology. A big thank you to our authors and narrators. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week for 2 stories that pull back the veil to the other side.
Thanks so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Flame Tree Myth and Fiction podcast and look forward to the next episode. Do recommend it to your friends. Goodbye for now.